All right, welcome back to the channel. I just want to talk about viscosity in the 2GR FE. I recently did a oil change video and I decided to bump mine up to a 5W30. And this car, a 2016 Toyota Avalon with the 2GR FE, calls for a 0W20. And I was asked, why would you do that? Like, why would you decide to not listen to the engineers and up it to a 530? I wanted to do that for high temperature, high shear strength. I wanted to boost it up just a little bit. Plus, this engine now has 131,000 miles, and I figured some of those clearances and tolerances may have increased just a little bit. So I just wanted maybe to get some extra protection. So that was my opinion. And people said, well, you don't know more than the engineers, and I don't know more than the engineers, and I'm definitely not suggesting anyone to do anything. But this engine, the 2GR FE, which I think was designed came out in 2007, maybe, 2006, 2007. Those early models from 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010, they called for 5W30. And then around 2011, they went to a 0W20, which coincided with corporate average fuel economy penalties that were bestowed on the manufacturers. And that's when you saw all these companies go to 0W20 for better fuel mileage, better fuel economy. So is there a difference between the earlier model 2GR FEs in terms of oil clearances that would change from this engine, which is a newer model? So we're talking from going from 2009, 2010 up to the 2016s. Did the 2GR FE change the internals of this engine? And the answer that I found is they didn't. So I want to just show you a couple of specs on that because I find it interesting. So if we look over here, we have oil clearances on the connecting rods. So we get standard and maximum right there. And over here, this is now, if we go back here, this is the earlier model 2GR FE with the 5W30. This is the later model 2GR FE, 2014 and up. That calls for the 0W20. And the connecting rod oil clearances are exactly the same. And that's just one example. I could give you a 1,000 of them, but you just get drowned in specs. So let's take a look at the connecting rod bolt diameter. There's that. Here it is over here. It's the same. The mean journal diameter over here. I can't find it over here right now, but let's go to oil clearances. All right, crankshaft oil clearance right there. So that's, your oil that's feeding out in your crankshaft between the bearings. And this is the newer model. It's exactly the same. And I went through, there are so many specs, obviously. I went from valve, guide clearances. It's the same. I even looked at the oil pump, as far as the oil pump in the older version to the newer version. And it's the same oil pump. So we get the same oil pump. I looked at the oil chain, the chain length. The chain length is the same in both models. I figured maybe they changed up the chain length. They didn't. So that was the same as well. And everything I could see here, it hasn't changed, which I found to be kind of interesting, because if that's the case, and it does appear that it is, that means that it looks like they just simply changed the viscosity in the actual engine, the engine oil. So we got the intake valves, I got exhaust valves. We got the same clearance, or if it's not exactly the same, and believe me, it seemed to be, then it was certainly within parameters. And then check this out too, because I found this to be interesting. So we're talking, early models, 5W30, right? So you get 5W30. Then they bumped it down to a 0W20. And I have decided to go with the 5W30, right? The Lotus has the 2GR FE engine in it. that sports car where the V6, they turbocharge it. They put this engine in the Lotus. This is what the Lotus calls for. This is what Lotus wants you to put in this 2G RFE. It's a 5W40. So they're calling for a 5W40. So in Lotus, is there differences? Does Lotus take this V6 and do something to it that would change it? The only thing I have been able to find that Lotus changes on this 2G RFE is the exhaust cams on this engine. They took the lobe, right? All right, so you got a cam lobe like this. Okay, so this is from here to here. That's your lift. And then from here to here, like how long the lobe is actually staying open, that's your duration. So this is what they did. They took the duration, Lotus, and they shaved this sucker down. Like they ramped it so it was less duration, like that. And they did that for a reason. They did that shorter duration up top of the lift because it changes their exhaust tone. All right, so their exhaust sounds different because of that. But as far as the block, it's the same clearances, same everything. And they're telling you to go with a 5W40. So am I doing any damage with this? Depending on the way I drive and the temperatures, I don't think I am. So I think I'm okay there. I think I'm solid. But I'm not telling anyone to, change their whatever, don't switch it up because of what I said. And no one does anyway. I only have like 300 subscribers, so no one really cares, right? But I decided to go with that for that reason. All right, so let's take a look at 0W20, how it did my engine on an extended oil change interval, because I did used to use 0W20. So check this out. And I think it did great. So I probably shouldn't have even bothered changing it, but I did. All right, so it looks like 10,000 miles on this 2G RFE. I used Mobil 1 Extended Performance. I went 10. Blackstone Labs, my total base number in this oil did excellent, 3.9 total base number. The additives are doing really good on that. The insolubles, which is, I'm looking at am I looking at carbon deposit? Am I, things that didn't dissolve, it's not soluble. The cleanliness of the engine was very low, and I'll show you that. Precondition, the average universal numbers are for 6,900 miles, and we'll talk about that in a sec. But they're telling me to go 12,000 miles. So let's look first at the wear metals. All right, so we got aluminum, we got iron, we got copper. Check this out. So on iron, I'm at 5 parts per million. The average is 8. So I got 8. All right, if you're doing 1 part per million per 1,000 miles, that is damn good. I'm doing 0.5. This engine right here is pretty easy on oil. So these 2G RFEs are pretty easy on oil. I'm only averaging 0.5, a half part per million when you look at my iron right there. So that's pretty solid. And then you look at the ad pack, what Mobil 1's using. We got 81 on moly. We have, titanium 1. The boron was 47. And if you look over here, that just, how does that ad pack compare to other brands? It's about pretty even. Mobil 1 isn't really known for throwing incredible amounts of additives into the oil. They supposedly use better base stocks. I don't know. Who knows? I have no idea. But those are those additives. Okay, so the only thing I would really worry about in this category would be silicone. Like silicone, I would, if that were high, I would be concerned. Like if this was tossing up some high silicone, I'd be like, okay, what do I have? An air leak? Do I have a cabin? Do I have a engine air filter leak? Did I change the valve cover gasket? Do I have some of the RTV that leaked into the top of the valve train? Do I have a coolant leak? So is 14 high? It's not. It's really below average. So even on 10,000 miles, which is what I did, I fell below 17, which was an average of 6,900 miles for most people. All right, so let's jump in down here where I get some good numbers down here. Okay, so the viscosity at 210 degrees, it falls in between grade, which is what you want, of 0W20. However, I will say this, it sheared down a little bit. Like this did drop down. If you look at Mobil 1's numbers on 0W20, they're higher than that usually. I think they come in at like 53. So it did shear down. It sheared down a little bit, which is part of the reason why I wanted to go 530, right? All right, so same thing with the viscosity at 100 degrees. It dropped a little bit in viscosity. So this 0W20 is still a 0W20, but it dropped a little bit. So my thought process is my 5W30 that I put in there is gonna drop too as I go longer and longer, right? All right, my fuel is doing great. That's why I think I can do extended oil change, because I have TPI, I have tune port injected. You know, I don't have I don't have gasoline direct injected. That's not, I don't have that. If I had that and I'm sitting there at the fuel, I mean, my fuel could be, my percent could climb, my flash point's gonna climb, or lower, I should say. Like my flash point is looking really good here. You see some gasoline direct injected, I mean, the flash point just drops. It's just, you're getting too much fuel in that crankcase. All right, my insolubles, this thing is spotless. I'm not, you know, picking up the carbon in there, debris, whatever you want to say. And those are the things I worry about more than the actual wear metals themselves. Like I'm looking at the insolubles, I'm like, okay, this thing's running clean still. So that's good. So I think that's somewhat interesting. It's a good analysis, but this is 0W20. So this was actually 0W20. And it was really good. I'm hoping 5W30 could do even better. That's my thought process. I mean, I'm thinking that as I go. So let's just take a look at my filter here that I did cut open. I said I was gonna do that. So this is 10,000 miles, and this particular latest oil change was on a 5W30, it was Mobil 1. So I'm gonna get my annoying flashlight out. I'm gonna look for like carbon. I'm gonna look for some shiny stuff in there. I'm gonna see if there's, you know, anything super shiny. I don't know if you can pick it up. I see a little bit of specks of metal in there. Not metal, but like just, I can see a little bit of shiny here and there. It's really hard. It's microscopic. It's parts per million. We're talking small stuff that the filter might be able to catch. But if you start looking through those pleats there, especially at the edges, they're not catching any sludge. I'm not getting any crazy varnish in there. I mean, not varnish, but like, you know, pieces of carbon, just not seeing it. So we're looking pretty clean here. And this is 10,000 miles using 5W30 on this one. So I'm just gonna go through that and I'll flip it over. See what I get on the other side. All right, so let's take a look over here. All right, so not that you're gonna be able to tell much from this. You really need a used oil analysis on this. I don't know, you tell me. I mean, is it clean? I think it looks really clean. And my finger's stuck in the lens there. All right, so I don't know, tell me what you think. I mean, if you think I should be putting 0W20 in this, that, you know, I don't know more than the engineers. I would definitely agree with you. I don't know more than the engineers, but I do think that I'm totally fine running 5W30 in this 2GRFE because they used to do it themselves. So Toyota used to do that themselves. And there's not much here that's changed, or much, if anything at all, that's changed in the internals and your oil clearances on these engines. So the 2GRFE, they may have made some improvement as they went on with these engines. You know, they may have changed the head gaskets, which I believe they did because they were having problems, leaks in the back, and they were leaking. They may have put a different RTV on the timing cover. All right, so am I doing damage to the engine here with a 5W30? Did a lot of research. Didn't seem like there were, many changes between this engine and the previous one that did run 5W30. I also did a lot of research online, you know, hey, what are people using in oil forums and Toyota forums? And the consensus is, you know, you can almost put whatever you want in these things. They're going to do just fine. I don't know. I think 5W30 is fine. And I like to bump it up anyway, the viscosity up a little bit when you start getting a little older in the engine, you start getting a little wear, all those oil changes, all that driving. So that's what I did. But give me your opinion, you know, because oil is like religion. You know, it's something we all like to talk about. It's like politics, it's religion. It's a hot button topic, you know, oil. You know, it's our maintenance, it's our decisions, and it's important to us. So let me know what you think, and let me know what your opinion is. Thanks. Bye.